Hey Maggie, so like I told you yesterday, I wanted to send you this video, and in this video I'll explain how the system works, the forum system, forum website. It's a little different than what you're probably used to, but if you follow this video, you should be in good shape. So there's a couple steps. So let me give you a scenario. Let's pretend that you have a class called photography, let's say 201. That's your class name. Let's say that class is happening on March 3rd. I'm just making up these numbers in the class name. So we have photography 201 happening on March 3rd. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is create a new category. Now, with regards to your business, a category inside this forum system would be equivalent to a class that you're putting together. So the word category and the word class are synonymous. Okay, so you're not going to use categories in the way that I think you were thinking it would be used. A category is a class. So we're going to click on categories on the left, and you can see I already created a category called Photography 101, March 1st, 2011. I'm going to create a new category. Or, like I said, you can call this a class. It's basically the same thing. It's because of how you'll be using the system. So I'm going to call this Photography 201, March 3rd, 2011. And just to make things more thorough and less confusing, I would recommend, although you don't have to do it, but I'd recommend putting the date as part of the class or category name right here. You don't have to. And if your class names are so unique, that's fine. You wouldn't have to worry about that. But in case they are things like photography 201, or maybe you have photography 201 and then next year you have another photography 201, maybe you want to separate those two, and the way to do that would be to create a separate category or class with photography 201 and then a different date. So that's just a recommendation or a suggestion. So you enter that here. You can see that it's creating on the fly a unique URL. Okay, so that's essentially your unique URL to this class. Okay, now if we scroll down, okay, the first thing you're going to see here is because I had already created another category called Photography 101, March 1st, 2011. It's basically asking you if you want people that have access to Photography 201 to have control in any way over Photography 101, and you don't. So if you click on the word add, it'll uncheck both of those. If you click view, it'll uncheck both of those. These things down here, what I would do is actually uncheck all of them except the member area. And what that basically means is by default, you want to have people being members in the system. So whenever you create a new category or a new class, uncheck these and uncheck any other categories, the options or the permissions right here when you're creating a new category, except for the member section. Okay, so once you add 10 classes, at some point you'll have 10 classes or 10 categories that you've added to the system. When you create a new category, you're going to see each one of those courses or categories or classes that you've set up previously will show up here. You just want to uncheck the options for those. Uncheck for band, uncheck for guest, uncheck applicant, moderator, administrator. Leave member though. And when you're done with that, you've given it a name, unchecked everything, but the member options, just leave those as the default. And the confirm email, you can leave that down here and then click save. Okay, so now we're looking at all the categories, and right now there's two. So this is, again, equivalent to looking at two different classes. Categories equals classes. So once you've created the category, the next thing you want to do is create a role. So we'll go over to roles and permissions. Okay, and we want to add a new role right here. And we're going to call this exactly the same name as the category. And that's to keep things organized. You could theoretically call it something else, but you'll probably run into problems of trying to remember which role belongs to which category. So what you want to always keep in mind is whenever you create a category, you always want to create a corresponding role. So if you have 10 categories, you'll have 10 roles. And each category you create should have a role that has exactly the same name. And that's just a strong suggestion that I'd have to keep things organized. Okay, so we've created a category called Photography 201, March 2nd, 2011. Now we are creating a role with the same name. Now if we scroll down, what this is asking is what are the permissions for this particular role? And by default, in this first top block of information, I would leave View checked by default. Okay, now if you scroll down here, you'll see there's a plugins section, and you want to allow these. So you can check both of them at the same time by clicking Allow. And this allows people to download attachments and upload attachments. So that's important when people are participating in a particular category or class. If you want them to be able to upload and download pictures to contribute and discuss things, then you want to make sure this plugin section has both of those checked. Okay, now the next thing you'll notice here are the two categories or classes that are inside the system. And for this one, because this is the Photography 201, you want to make sure the Photography 101 doesn't have anything checked. Okay? Because essentially what's happening here, let me take a step back, is you're creating a class, you're creating a role, again both have exactly the same name, then you're going to create a user in the system, and once that user's in the system, you're assigning different roles to that user. So for example, let's say I signed up for one of your classes, let's say I signed up and paid for Photography 101. So I need to be created as a user in the system, and I need to be given a role of Photography 101, March 1st, 2011. If I haven't signed up for Photography 201, I don't want to be given that role. Okay? And this works because you can give multiple roles to the same person. One person or one user could have 50 different roles. So if someone had signed up for 50 classes of yours, as long as you gave them permission or you gave them 50 roles, then they'd be able to see and participate in every one of the classes. However, like you're seeing right here, I created this role called Photography 201. If you go down here, I don't want anyone that has access to this role to be able to see anything in Photography 101. Okay, I just want people, because this is for the Photography 201 class, I just want Photography 201 people to have access to it. So I want to leave the add, that's important, and the view. You want to leave all of these in the middle unchecked. Okay, so by leaving add checked here, that means people can make comments and they can create discussions within the Photography 201 category or class. And by leaving view checked, that means they can view other information that's posted for this category or class. If, for example, I had left all of this checked, actually if I had left these checked and then saved this role, if I gave this role to someone, a new user in the system, they would have access to add and post comments and discussions and also view both of these classes, which you don't want. So when you're creating a new role, that role should only give access the add and the view column access to the appropriate category. And you can always know which one that is because the category name should be identical to the role name. So that's another reason that you want to keep those identical. Okay, when you create this up here and you scroll down, you want to make sure that all of these, only the right category is checked, and all the other ones that you'll see. I mean, if you have 50 classes, you'll see 50 of these categories down here. It would just kind of scroll on and on. So to quickly uncheck something, you just click on this, and that'll turn all on or all off, and that makes it easy. So if you have several classes in here already, all you have to do is, when you're creating a new role, just quickly uncheck all of them except for the category that you're actually wanting to give this role access to. Okay, so photography 201, that's what we want. We're going to save it. So now that that's saved, if we go over to users, really quick here, again, we're looking at all the roles that are in the system now. So we have two categories or classes, and then we have two corresponding roles that are associated with the classes that we created. Now if we click on users, you can see that you're in the system as an admin. I've also added myself as a user. And instead of creating a new user, which you do right here just by clicking add user, what you do is go in here, I'm going to go into this existing user, and I'm going to click edit on the right. And when I click edit here, this asks me essentially what classes or what roles. It's asking you what roles, but because we're setting up a corresponding role for every category, you're essentially saying, okay, this user, 344 Kellogg, this is me in this case, this user has access to, and then you can check or uncheck the things that they have access to. So in this case, because I had created this other class, this photography 101 class yesterday when I was playing around with the system, I already left that checked, which essentially means when I log in as a user into your forum system, I'll be able to see right now this particular class or category. Now, let's say that I had just paid for your 201 class also. What you would need to do as the admin for this forum is to go into the edit area for this user, which in this case is already in the system, go down here and check photography 201, March 2nd, 2011, and then save it at the bottom. And what you're saying is when Russell Tanner logs into the system, he can see and participate in both of these classes. Now if I unchecked 101 and saved it, then I would only have access to the 201 class. Now these other things up here, you can leave these unchecked. So ban, guest, applicant, moderator, administrator, confirm email. Leave all of those unchecked. You can leave member checked by default. That's kind of a fail-safe. But the real thing that you're paying attention to here are the permissions to the different roles, or in essence, the classes that I have access to. Okay, so if I jump over, this is the actual forum. So I'm logged in as, well, actually, you know what, let me log in as myself here. So I'm going to log in as, okay, so I'm logging in as me right now. Okay, so this is saving. Okay, so once that is saved, you can see that when I'm logged in here, I have access to both of these classes off to the left. So again, the word category is synonymous with classes. So I can see photography 101, I can see photography 201 because I'm given roles, a role to see both of those. And if I click on photography 101, I can create a new discussion. So I can call this whatever I want to call this. So I'll just put test discussion, and it asks me which category or which class do I want to create this discussion in. So I pick the class. So if I'm trying to post if I want to post a discussion that has to do with photography 201, because I have access to it. If I only had one class that I had access to, all the drop down here would show as one class. But because I have access to two of them, I can pick which one. And then I can give it just a description, just test description, and I can post it. Okay, so now you can see up here the photography 101, there's a little 1 next to it, and that means there's one discussion that's been put in here. And if I click on this again, it'll show all the discussions. So what you could do as an administrator is log in here, find the right class that you want to post a discussion to. Let's say you as an administrator, the class instructor, want to have your assignments posted right here. Or let's say you want to have some sample pictures that you want to post. So you could go to start a new discussion. We'll just put sample pictures. If you wanted to attach a file, you could attach a file right here. And I think you've already seen how to do that in the system. So post the discussion. So now you can see there's a little 2 right here. That means there's 2 different discussions. So if we click on that again, you'll see now there's 2 different discussions that are both part of Photography 101 class or category. And if I'm a user that has access to this class, I can go in here, see these different discussions, and go, okay, sample pictures, yeah, let me click on that. You can see whatever you had put here, and I can put my own comment. You know, that's great. And I can attach my own file if I wanted, and then post the comment. And then you'll just see a string of information associated with this discussion. Okay, so in recap, first thing that you want to do is create a new category inside the system. So you want to go to categories, give it a very specific name, save it, go to role and permissions, create a new one, give it exactly the same name that you gave the new category that you just created, and then go through the various permissions there that I talked about earlier, and then create the new user in the system. Okay, so I click on add a new user or add user right here. I'd give that person a username, test username. I could give that person a password. I have their email address. And then basically, again, right here, I'm saying, okay, which classes or categories do I want to give this person access to? So maybe it's just this class, or maybe it's just this one, or maybe it's both of them. And again, leave the member checked. When I was playing around with the system, it seemed like that was something that needed to be checked. It might not. I probably want to play around with it a little bit. You could also. But for sure, you want to pick the course or courses that this user has access to. So you can change, you can add or remove access at any time to any user inside the system just by going to users and then clicking edit off to the right. And that's about it. So category, then create a role, then create a user, and then assign the right role to that user, which in essence will give permission to that particular class. Now the one last thing I'm going to show you here, and this is something that you'll just need to decide on yourself. You can either collect the class, the participants, or you get the participants' emails when they sign up for a class. You'll get a confirmation email. You can either make the decision. I decide this before you start anything. You can make the decision that when that person signs up, that you'll create them as a user in the system manually. You'll go into the back end, add new user, add all the information because you'll have that person's email address and their other information. So you could add them. Or what you could do, and this would probably save you a little work, is send them this link. So the forum at MaggieHolmesDesign.com, send them that link. Maybe that's in the confirmation email they receive. I'm not sure when they sign up for a class. Or maybe it's in the back end of the system of the main website. But you direct them to this forum, and when they get here, if they've never signed in before, then there is the option down here that says don't have an account, create one. You could have people create their own account, and they'll put in their email address, they'll give their self a username, password, why do you want to join. You could require them to just say, hey, I signed up for blah 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 whatever class. They agree to the terms of service and then apply. Now that does not automatically give them access to anything, because the way the system's set up is you'll be notified that a person has signed up for membership to your Maggie Holmes Design forum, and then you can go into the back end and actually approve and give that person access to whatever class or classes that they should have access to. So this, I mean, basically the work this is saving you would be entering this information. And this might be the preferable way to do it instead of you doing all this from scratch, just because they'll be able to put in whatever username they want to use in the forum. They'll be able to put in whatever password they want to use, which will save time. They could probably change that later, but if you allow them to do this right off the bat, then you don't have to come up with a password and tell them what that password is. You just say, great, thank you for signing up for this class. If you're a new user, make sure you visit forum.maggiehomesdesign.com. Click on the create link at the very bottom here, so this create one link. Enter your information. You'll be notified that they registered, and you'll know they're legitimate if you have a receipt from the main website that they had signed up for a class. So that's kind of how you check things back and forth. So if you have any questions, let me know, but it's pretty straightforward. Again, just always remember that categories is the same thing as a class. So create your category or class first, role, and then add the user and give that user access to the right roles, which gives them access to the right classes in turn. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. I think you should clearly be able to see how it's different than the way you were approaching it. And the discussions that you'll create, discussions always fall under categories or classes. So you'll always create a new discussion for a particular category or class. So anyways, this took a little longer than I thought it would, just because I had to play around with the system and wrap my head around how it worked. But once I kind of wrapped my own head around it, it was pretty clear and pretty cut and dry how it works. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.